You know, it might be hard to believe now, but Russia was once a brutal authoritarian dictatorship run by a cruel, bloodthirsty maniac who terrorised his own population and even his own government ministers, creating a climate of perpetual fear, suspicion and paranoia where every word and conversation had to be guarded, and just saying the wrong thing at the wrong moment could be enough to earn you a one-way trip to Siberia. Nice to see things have changed. Anyway, in this case, brutal authoritarian dictator de jure is Joseph Stalin, who ran the Soviet Union with an iron fist for more than 3 decades before finally dying of a stroke in 1953. The resulting struggle for power, control and sheer survival amongst his closest subordinates forms the main storyline for The Death of Stalin, a 2017 political satire written and directed by Armando Iannucci. And the great news here is that it's a fucking brilliant movie that somehow manages to tease a black comedy out of one of the most bleak, barbaric and depressing episodes of human history. The movie kicks off in 1953 where Stalin's hosting a late night dinner party with his closest advisor. Not only does this introduce us to the main players in the story, but it also gives an insight into the climate of fear that hangs around the Soviet leader. The forced joviality, the insistence on laughing at Stalin's every joke, the way they all make careful notes about what they said to him afterwards just in case they might have pissed him off. This is a country where anything less than absolute unwavering praise and loyalty can easily get you added to one of Stalin's lists, and a late night visit from the secret police. Anyway, Stalin demands a recording of a concert that played on the radio earlier that night, which forces the orchestra and the entire audience to repeat the whole thing again just for him. Another sign of how literally nobody is brave enough to tell him no. Well, nobody except a disgruntled piano player who smuggles a note into the recording telling him what a fucking asshole he is, and the sight of it causes him to have a stroke and collapse. I love the reaction when they finally muster up the courage to go into his office the next day. Nobody really wants him to pull through, so they dick around and waste time before calling a doctor. And even then, it's a pretty shit doctor because all the good ones have already been executed on Stalin's orders. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? Anyway, needless to say, the boss man eventually dies, and when he does, the race is on to fill the power vacuum left behind. Technically, the job passes on to his deputy, Malenkov, but he soon proves to be a weak, indecisive man who's easily swayed by others. The real struggle here is between Lavrenti Beria, the ruthless head of the secret police, and Nikita Khrushchev. I love how their rivalry begins right off the bat with petty little things like being the first to offer their condolences to Stalin's daughter, or curry favour with his alcoholic son. Anyway, naturally Beria's more used to this kind of political skullduggery, and quickly makes Malenkov his puppet so he can consolidate power around himself. Increasingly isolated and well aware of what will happen if a monster like Beria gets control of the country, Khrushchev forms a desperate plan to stage a military coup and bring down his rival. Like I said earlier, you'd think a story dealing with the political betrayals, paranoia, deportations, torture and executions of the Soviet Union in the 1950s wouldn't exactly be fertile ground for comedy, but just like Dr. Strangelove 50 years earlier, The Death of Stalin works by exposing the absurdity behind a terrible situation. Titanic figures from the history books like Khrushchev, Stalin, Beria and Molotov are depicted very much as the mundane human beings behind the public personas, with all the weaknesses, frailties, petty gripes and rivalries that real people go through. They bitch and moan at each other over unwanted jobs and personal grievances, they argue over petty details and struggle to make decisions, and most of them prefer to sit back, waiting to see which way the wind's blowing before daring to voice their own opinions. Armando Iannucci is a master of writing sharp, biting dialogue from cynical characters who all hate each other. I mean, just watch a few episodes of Veep or In the Thick of It if you don't believe me. And he's at the very top of his game here, giving us a cast of dangerous, envious, power-hungry arseholes, all vying to be top dog by any means necessary. There's no particular heroes or villains here, they're all just varying degrees of bad, and who you want to come out on top is more a matter of choosing the lesser of two evils. But holy shit, my Man of the Match award has got to go to Zhukov, the commander of the Russian army and a vital part of the military coup to take down Beria. This guy is an absolute fucking legend. He swaggers into every situation like he intends to personally fuck every single person in the room, and he's got some of the best lines and insults in the whole movie.
Hands up or I'll shoot you in the fucking face. Jesus Christ. Did Coco Chanel take a shit on your head? Medic! Oh, not today! No, I'm smiling. But I am very fucking furious. Stick you in a frock, I'd fucking ride you all myself.
I will take that as a compliment.
Yeah, don't. Fuck me. Georgie's eyes really do follow you around the crapper. Weird.
Just like the Chernobyl miniseries, The Death of Stalin has a bunch of different actors from different countries speaking English with a wide variety of different accents. And I can see why that's kind of off-putting for some people, but personally I'm fucking fine with it. It's way better than having everyone speak English with cheesy Russian accents, and it better represents the fact that the Soviet Union was a big diverse country with lots of different regions, all with their own unique accents and dialects. The only way to get that kind of thing across to the audience is to do exactly what they did here. I mean, I don't know, man, it just kind of works for me. Clearly the film's set up as a black comedy and a political satire, and while it definitely shuffles a few things around and takes a few liberties with real life history, not to mention the fact that most of the actors look absolutely nothing like their real life counterparts, it actually follows the main events pretty well. Some of it's so fucking outlandish that you'd never believe it actually could have happened, but for the most part, well, it really did. The Soviet Union must have been fucking wild, man. It's also not afraid to give you more serious, dramatic moments when the story calls for it. I'm not going to spoil things too much, but as the film builds towards its climax and characters are forced to choose a side, shit gets real pretty fucking quick, and I began to feel like I was watching a very different movie. The writers might have intended to poke fun at the horrors and brutality of the Stalin era, but they also know when to step back on one so the full impact of the other can sink in. It's not many films that can keep me absorbed and fascinated from start to finish, especially when I already know what's going to happen, but The Death of Stalin managed it by presenting an old story in a new, creative and entertaining way. It's got great writing and directing from a man at the top of his game, supported by a solid cast of experienced actors, and the end result is a compelling, funny and interesting movie that I'd be more than happy to rewatch. Anyway, that's all I've got for today, comrades. Go away now.